Imagine having a day like any other, and suddenly your body starts to betray you. Your strength fades, and you find yourself on the edge between life and death. This is the incredible story of Allison Ramsey, who faced a devastating crisis. She went through an experience on the borderline between this world and the next, returning with a message that can transform lives. If you've ever feared losing control or searched for answers about the future, get ready. What you're about to hear could bring you the hope and peace you've been seeking. But before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The stories I share can change how you see life beyond death and help you reflect on what truly matters. Without further delay, let's dive into the story. Hello, my name is Tracy Kirkley, and I live in Auckland, New Zealand. I want to share something incredible that happened to me in October 2022. It was a completely normal day. I was with my daughter, we went to the mall, had lunch, and did some shopping. Everything seemed fine, but suddenly, while I was walking, I felt a strange sensation in my right leg, as if I were stumbling over myself. I found it odd, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was walking too fast. So I decided to slow down, thinking it would pass, but it didn't. It felt like my body was refusing to obey me. My right side began to feel heavy. At that moment, I realized something was wrong. When I got to the checkout to pay, my mind was already confused. I could reach for my card in my wallet, but everything felt strange. Once I was back at the car where my daughter was waiting, I told her, "I think you should drive. I don't feel right." She agreed, and we drove home while my daughter headed to her house, and I started wondering whether I should go to the hospital. Maybe that would be wise, but I didn't want to trouble anyone, especially if it wasn't serious. At that moment, my husband called me. He was at another hospital taking care of his mother, who had a serious health issue. This weekend, we had planned to visit her after lunch, but everything changed because of what happened to me. When I shared my symptoms with my husband, he didn't hesitate for a second. "You need to go to the hospital right away." That's exactly what we did. My daughter drove me to the nearest hospital, and as I was entering the emergency room, I started to wonder if I was overreacting. Maybe it wasn't that serious after all. However, as soon as I explained my situation, the doctor insisted I needed urgent medical care, and they brought me in immediately. When my daughter parked the car, they began their assessments. I had suddenly lost strength on the right side of my body, and I started to stiffen up. Despite this, I was aware, but I felt like my body and mind were completely out of control, which was especially hard for my daughter to witness. After a preliminary examination, the doctor came to talk to me and suggested that I might have had a TIA, like a mini stroke. They explained that they didn't see any significant abnormalities in their initial evaluation, but an MRI would be necessary to understand the situation better. Unfortunately, due to the extended holidays in New Zealand, I would have to wait a few more days to have that test done. In the meantime, they gave me medication to dissolve a possible blood clot and prevent the condition from worsening. The first night in the hospital was brutal. It was almost impossible to get any sleep in the emergency room. The noise of people moving around, doctors rushing by, it all created real chaos around me. Finally, the next day, I was transferred to a hospital room. That's when the doctors came back with new information. They suspected a stroke, but they also found abnormalities in my brain, like a spot or a small tumor that shouldn't be there. I was in shock. First, I was facing the threat of a stroke, and now I had another abnormality in my brain. This was bad news, but I knew I had to focus on the most urgent issue, which was the cerebrovascular event. The rest could wait. So I decided to take a deep breath and continue with the exams and treatments at the hospital, hoping that everything would turn out fine. Then, something unexpected happened. I had a new episode. This time I felt my right side collapsing, as if my body was sinking. It was horrible. The medical team transferred me to the cardiovascular unit and began searching for the cause of the stroke. What was most baffling was that I had no risk factors. I take care of my health, I eat balanced meals, I exercise. Nothing made sense. That night I realized I needed more than medication. I picked up my phone and called my husband, asking if he could pray for me. Until that moment, I had kept my struggle a secret, but in that instant, I understood I needed spiritual support. I wanted the people I knew to pray for me. It was like a cry for help as my body was about to give up and I needed something greater to lift me up. That night as I lay in the hospital, something terrible happened. I felt an overwhelming fear in the room, like a dark and heavy shadow. But do you know what I did? I didn't let it bring me down. Taking control deep in my heart, I told myself that I had no power over what was happening to me because everything was in God's hands. At that moment, that dreadful feeling faded, as if something had left the room, and I regained my calm. Soon after, I started to feel incredible sensations, as if strength was returning to my right side. There was a real feeling like a rising wave within me, revitalizing my body. I then knew that the prayers of those around me were having an effect, as if I could feel their energy wrapping around me, bringing hope and strength. However, something inside told me I was being cared for, and a few days later I finally underwent an MRI, and the doctor confirmed the stroke I had feared so much. They told me that the part of my brain responsible for speech balance and movement on the right side of my body had been affected, which meant I needed to relearn some functions through intensive rehabilitation. I was moved to the specialized stroke unit, where I began to face this new reality. I remember it was Halloween, but in the hospital everything felt so distant, as if I had forgotten what was happening outside. Early one morning I needed to use the bathroom and tried to walk on my own with a walker, but on the way back my strength failed me. My body became immobile and I had to hold on to avoid falling. I stayed there, unable to move, until a nurse came to help me back to bed. As soon as I lay down, violent seizures began, and the nurses rushed to get help, but the seizures started to subside before the doctors arrived. When everything calmed down, I lay there exhausted and emotionally overwhelmed, haunted by thoughts of my mother, who had passed away a few months earlier, a feeling I can barely describe. He reassured me that I was in the river and receiving my healing. At that moment, I felt a wave of something flowing inside me, as if the damaged parts of my body were regaining strength. While all this was happening, I noticed the trees lining the river. They were beautiful, green, and perfect. It felt like everything around me was in perfect harmony. In that moment, I remembered a Bible verse about the river of life and the leaves of the trees that heal the nations. This was the experience I was living near that shore. And in the distance, I saw something even more extraordinary. A city that looked like it came straight out of a fairy tale, with golden shining towers that radiated light. I felt that this city was the throne of God. Everything seemed meaningful, as if I were at the center of a larger plan. Even in that spiritual experience, I knew I had made the right choice to return to my body. After this incredible experience, I began to feel that my body had truly changed. Soon after, I had more tests, and the doctor confirmed that I had suffered a stroke. I showed detailed images of my brain and carefully explained that a part of it was severely damaged, which explained my significant difficulties with movement and speech. However, here comes the surprising discovery. Do you remember the brain injuries they initially found? They had disappeared, as if they were never there. Even the doctor couldn't explain it. They reviewed the scans again, but there were no signs of the injuries that had been visible before. To me, the answer is clear. It's a miracle. It's the result of prayers, the power of God, and the healing I experienced in that river. It brings me great relief and deep gratitude, even amid pain and uncertainty, knowing that something extraordinary gave me the strength to keep fighting. The doctors were also amazed at how quickly I recovered, while other patients were still very weak. After just 10 days, I began using a walker to move around the hospital. I left the hospital and went home, something that had seemed impossible at first. Every step I took reminded me I was not alone and that something greater was looking after me. When I finally left the hospital, I asked the doctors again about the brain injuries they had found before. They looked at me in confusion and then said those injuries had completely vanished, as if they were never even there. This clearly proves that prayer, deep faith, and my incredible experience with Jesus are real and powerful. There's no other explanation. The injuries just disappeared and the healing happened much faster than anyone expected. Everyone was amazed and said it was unusual. Other rehab patients had been there for weeks or months and still couldn't walk, feed themselves, or perform simple tasks. Meanwhile, I was walking with a walker and slowly getting my life back. It felt like a true miracle. This experience completely changed how I see life. I went through something terrifying and painful while experiencing things many can't even imagine. I met Jesus, felt his presence, was healed by him, and was given a new chance at life. Now I just want to share my story and bring hope to those who need it. No matter what struggles you face, there are always reasons to believe and keep going. Life is a gift, and every new day is a chance to achieve something meaningful. Thank you for following this journey until the end. If this story touched you in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep sharing stories that inspire and change lives. I'll see you in the next video.